joining me today on another episode of The Gray Area. Don't have the graphics up today. We're just going to just jump right in. I got one half of the Shan and RJ show. I got the RJ half of Shan and RJ Choppy. What's up, man? How are you?
How are you, man? Happy to be here.
I appreciate it, man. I'm doing good, man. You know, just trying to quarantine, chill, just like, you know, the rest of America is supposed to be doing. You
right?
know,
Absolutely.
that kind of thing. But we've had kind of a massive day in college football, if you will. The Pac-12 and the Big Ten have decided, hey, this college football thing for 2020, yeah, we're not going to do that for right now. The ACC just recently put out a statement saying that we're going to remain flexible. You know, we trust the protocols that have been in place for our schools at the moment, and we'll see how this thing goes, basically, while still the Big 12 and the SEC are trying to figure things out as they go. Just your initial reaction from what has happened with the Big Ten and the Pac-12 with respect to deciding that, hey, we're not going to do this right now. Is this the right decision based on how things have been going so far, or should there have been more time to decide, hey, maybe we should, you know, wait on this a little bit further?
You know, long term, I don't think it's the wrong decision because I don't think anybody's probably going to play. My question with the decision is does it need to be done now? The SEC and the ACC, I think they've said their schedule won't start until September 26th. So they've got over a month. They got a month and a half. They don't need to do this a week and a half into August. You know, so they can, they can wait till September 1st. They can wait till September 15th. They can allow kids on campus, see how it goes. They can not allow kids on campus and say, hey, this is just a bad idea. You know, I don't think it's the wrong decision long term, but I think right now it's a decision that I don't want to call it premature. It's just that didn't need to be made yet. But again, like I kind of go back and forth on this because CEOs and coaches and owners, they have to make decisions, governors, presidents, senators, whatever. They have to make decisions where they have to think about everybody. I have to make decisions that I think about me and my two kids, my family, right? So they've got to think about just say the presidents of the university. They got to think about the athletic department, right, the academic department, the student body, the kids on scholarship, the kids who are foreign exchange students, the kids who are getting paid to go there. They've got the liability, the boosters. They got to think about everybody, the town. So, man, I kind of always take a step back before I criticize a governor, a president, a school president, a dean, because, man, we have never had to make decisions like they've had. And there's a reason they're paid highly to make these decisions. And sometimes they're going to be wrong. Like in this, every single one of us has been wrong at some point in COVID. Like every single one of us has been wrong at something. And, you know, it's such uncharted territory. I can't sit here and say that the Big Ten commissioner's wrong. I can't say he's right. I can't say the SEC commissioner's wrong. It's such a wild situation that I don't know what the right answer is. And for me to come on here and, you know, play armchair quarterback in a decision that thankfully I've never had to be in.
Yeah.
Like the only thing that is appealing to the Big Ten commissioner's job is that paycheck. That's got to be phenomenal. But you know, some of the positions that these guys and girls have to be put into, I don't envy that.
And yeah, Kevin Warren, the Big Ten commissioner, had a large decision to make along with Larry Scott, the Pac-12 commissioner, and they've decided at this point that, hey, we're going to go ahead and sit this thing out for a while. And I think what has really been interesting about all of this, not only the months leading up to these decisions today by a couple of conferences, but throughout all of this, is the leadership or lack thereof, who's in control, who's not in control, and how much more of that has been exposed throughout this process. What have you thought about as far as the way college football operates, not just as a whole, but these individual Power 5 conferences or the schools themselves, and how independently of one another they have operated as they've tried to make decisions that are in the best interest of not just themselves as conferences, but overall for the health of college football, and that kind of being exposed throughout this entire process.
Yeah, it's weird. They're not a marriage. They're like a common law marriage together, right?
Yeah.
Like they can get up and leave at any time. And, that is the one thing. Like college basketball has a singular leader. So and this is one thing I don't think a lot of people realize, college football is not governed by the NCAA. They're governed by basically the college football playoff. The Power Five, follows the lead of the college football playoff committee, and each conference can make their own determinations on what they think is best for them. And then the group of five, and then you've got your other FBS and FCS schools, and it's a Wild West. And I think that the one thing they're missing is a leader. Look, I went to an SEC school. I grew up in the Northeast. I never cared about college football until I went to Tennessee. And when I got there, I realized like the only thing that Tennessee fans hate more than Alabama is the Big Ten. Like, that's the only thing. Man, the Big Ten and the SEC do not like each other.
Yeah.
And the Pac-12 was always going to do what the Big Ten did. And the SEC is just going to be hell-bent on going the exact opposite. Like, they don't care they don't care about the Big Ten. They think they've been wronged a million times by the Big Ten, yada, yada, yada. And it's wild. And now there's like this petty infighting. I think it's different now than it was maybe 20 years ago. It's probably a little bit better. I think college football would be better off if they had a singular voice. I understand that there's what's good for the SEC is not good for the Big Ten, and what's good for the Big East isn't good for the Pac-12. And you've got to take that into account, and that's why the conference commissioners are important. But in a situation like this, we are realizing that leadership is important.
And as those these conferences make these decisions independent of themselves, for the long-term health of college football, is that necessarily the way that these conferences should go, given the different amounts of information that each conference is using to make the decisions for themselves to play or not to play? Is this the way that that college football should be operated going forward, given what we're dealing with right now and what has been exposed, given the amounts of different information and the individuals making those decisions?
It's probably smarter. But then again, how are you going to get five conferences to agree on one person? If you look at it, it's funny. I saw this post on Twitter yesterday, and we'll probably talk about this tomorrow morning on our show. But if you look at the two conferences that have canceled and the three that want to play still, it basically falls down party lines, and it's wild. Like, this has become a politicized virus, and it's a shame because it's costing lives, and it's costing the economy, and it's costing people jobs, and it's who knows how many people are going to lose elections in November, both at the national and local level, because of their reaction to this virus. The conferences in the South are like, man, we're playing football. And in the conferences on the West Coast and in the Big Ten states, which in the 2018 midterms all voted blue, are like, we're done, we're canceling. And it's like, God, we can't even be transparent about that. Like, my goodness. So, I don't know how you're going to get five commissioners to agree on a singular head, but there probably needs to be a singular head.
And I think one of the things that has been really, I guess, concerning for me is that when you have the independent decision makers here trying to do what's best for not only themselves, but for the conferences that they represent and the overall health of college football, you've seen what has happened with medical information about, for instance, myocarditis. We've seen individuals and heard of reports of individuals who are developing, heart conditions or having those exacerbated by COVID-19, and the issue of liability. I think that's one thing that I know Chris Arnold has talked about too, is that, look, these schools are not wanting to deal with this because there could be a lawyer, there could be lawsuits that put these schools in financial peril that says, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this because the liability from this is not worth the risk of getting these college kids out here on the football field. What have you made of that particular element of it, that the liability is one thing that's potentially scaring these schools away from playing this year?
Well, it's interesting you said, because I heard I talked to my I hate to say my attorney, but I talked to my attorney about this. and he had some interesting takes on it, but also some Amy Trask, who used to work for the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about the waiver aspect. Can't these kids just sign a waiver? And she was like, no, it's not going to work. And the reasoning is that the schools operate from a position of power, and they could coerce a student athlete who is powerless, right, in the way that structure is. And if you're a young kid, you come from a poor background and you wouldn't be able to afford to go to college, and you're here and you've got a great opportunity to go to the NFL at best, at worst get a 4-year degree and be able to set you and your family up for how about a chance at a future, you're going to sign whatever waiver they sign. And that would never hold up in court because you're operating from a position of power, and that is a coercive attitude. I don't say attitude, but it's a coercive moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other side is, and my buddy who's an attorney told me this, he said the word prove it is going to be very hard if something happens, like from a liability standpoint. Like if I'm a football player and I contracted the virus, can I prove I got it playing football? Right? And that's going to be a hard thing to prove. I could have gotten it at the gas station on the way to playing football. I could have gotten it at the grocery store. I could have got it for my girlfriend. I could have got it wherever. So, we can trace all we want, but how do we know for sure? And a lot of times these legal cases come down to prove it. And and that's what's dirty about this. This should not come down to legalese. This should not come down to money. This should not come down to coercing an 18-year-old kid from a, really, rough background to get out there and play at the risk of, contracting this virus, taking it home, getting grandma sick, and all of a sudden he doesn't have a grandmother anymore. To me, that's well beyond what we're trying to do here. We're trying to play football games. We're not trying to coerce kids into doing things. And
yeah,
I think you get on a slippery slope when you start, doing stuff like that.
and I think one thing we've seen too is that the player's voice has become much more forceful throughout this time, not just with the pandemic and dealing with social issues or whatever the case may be, but the idea of, hey, the hashtag "We Are United" from the Pac-12, or what Trevor Lawrence started with the hashtag "We Want to Play," and the players' voice is being heard. And are we going to see – we've seen some players opt out as far as their decisions to, sit out the college football season regardless of whether or not their conference is going to play. Do you anticipate seeing more players like a Justin Fields, for example, say, hey, you know what? Since we're not playing, I'm going to go ahead and end my college career and go ahead and get ready for the NFL draft in 2021. Do you anticipate more players potentially doing that because of this now?
Yeah, I think their first avenue they might take is to try to transfer. Like if I'm Justin Fields, I could go to the NFL. I'll be the presumptive number 2 pick. He might be number 1. We don't know. But I also want to play football. And I've got some unfinished business. That LSU quarterback job's open. Let's see if I can go there. Right? Or, it's an option. It's an opportunity for somebody to go in there and play somewhere else. I don't know. You've got to get by scholarship restrictions. I think they would waive those real quick.
Transfer portal is open right now.
Yeah, it's like, and even if they didn't waive the scholarship restriction, do you really think LSU is going to send him a tuition bill?
Nope.
Like they're just going to be like, just come on in, man.
Just come on down. Yeah.
Here's a course list. If you don't want to go, don't go. The NCAA is not looking this year anyway. So I think we're about to see the Wild West. We may see teams leave conferences. We may see players leave teams, transfer. It's going to be one of those like rent a player, like they do in soccer. Oh, we're just going to rent this guy's contract for the rest of the year.
Loan him out for the year, then
loan him out.
Back.
There you go. I don't. But I wouldn't. Like I said, I'm not upset with anybody in the NFL, in the NBA, in Major League Baseball, NHL. If you want to sit out because you're fearful of the virus, if you got family members, if you want to sit out because you don't think it's appropriate to be playing during the rising social movements, you got to do what you got to do. I can't criticize your decision on what's best for you. I mean, I've left jobs. We've all left jobs, and you know, some people just quit work with nowhere to go. Some people just quit relationships with nowhere to go because, you know, they want to do what feels right for them.
Yeah.
So I'm not ever going to criticize a player for wanting to sit out.
So RJ Choppy is sitting at the top of Rocky Top, and he gets Greg Sankey's job for one day. Does RJ Choppy want to see Nebraska come to the SEC, or wants to see Michigan or Ohio State? Does he want to see those schools come to the SEC for a season to play some college football this year?
I would love to see Michigan and Ohio State come to the SEC for a season, because I would love to see what 7-5 looks like on their feet. That's what I want to see. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it'd be great. I think it'd be fantastic. I mean, aside from the fact as to whether they should play, perfect world, and they do play and nobody gets sick, man, I think it'd be great. If there's a mass exodus for 1 year, just for 1 year, and Nebraska goes back to the Big 12, where they belong, by the way, and Iowa goes to the Big 12, and Iowa goes to the Big 12, where they could play alongside Iowa State, and they probably belong in the Big 12 as well. And Ohio State and Michigan go to, you know, the SEC. They're probably more linked to the ACC, honestly. Academically, the ACC is a better conference. You know, and I know these schools love to align themselves academically so they can feel good about themselves. They're not a football factory, and we all know they are a football factory. You know, us in the SEC, we're the only ones that admit it. And, you know, we don't hide behind it. So I would love to see it. I really would. I'm excited about Notre Dame going to, you know, actually play a real conference where they don't have to play just, you know, 2 tough games a year and then the cupcake schedule they normally play. I'm excited about all this, and I'm ready. And I'm ready to be disappointed because it's probably not going to happen.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I went to the University of Missouri, so we're in the SEC obviously too. And we got shafted by the new schedule that came out last week. I think they took away, I think it was Vanderbilt and somebody else. We got Alabama and LSU added to our schedule this year. So great. Thanks a lot to the SEC for adding Alabama and LSU to our schedule. So
yeah, that wasn't good. We added A&M and I think Arkansas. It wasn't. I mean, we're screwed too. we got to play Bama every year. We got to play Georgia, Florida, and Bama every year. We're the only school in the conference that has to play those 3 every single year, and it stinks. It's tough.
Last question before we get you out of here. Obviously, it has been a really different kind of day. It's really a historic day, really, in college football. Spinning this forward now, the SEC, the Big 12, the ACC, is this a situation, I think you kind of alluded to it earlier, is this a situation where the SEC looks at the situation and says, you know what, we're going full speed ahead. If you want to come with us, you're going to come with us. If not, then guess what? We're going to continue to go on. And if so, how do we move this forward now for college football, given what we could see in the spring in terms of spring football, and how all of this will look forward in the next 6 to 8 months with respect to college football?
You know, I think the teams, the conferences that play in the fall are going to operate like that's the only season that exists if they were to go ahead and play.
Yeah.
I don't think spring football is a reality. I don't know that you can ask kids who are not paid to play 25 games or 20 games, whatever it is, in 10 months. Like, you're going to ask them to play January, February, March, have April, May, June off, and go back for July, and that's a professional schedule. You don't even ask pros to do that.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a lot of football you think about it. They came in playing 10 games a year in high school, and now all of a sudden you're going to ask them to play 20, 25 games in 10 months. I think that's a big ask, and that you want to talk about player safety. That is not player safety. And the quickest way to lose the golden goose of the NCAA, which is amateurism, is to force kids to play when there's no kids on campus. And then also, or the other side is ask them to play almost double an NFL regular season schedule in 10 months. That's a big ask. And I think you're setting yourself up for a lot of problems down the road.
It's going to be a real interesting next few months to figure out how college football really moves itself forward, because it feels like the power dynamics are really shifting really from day to day with respect to how all this is going, and the voices of college football and how they have reacted to this. RJ Choppy, who loves his Tennessee Volunteers,
Woo!
good
Rock
enough.
top.
Good enough to join me here on another episode of The Gray Area. Chop, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the time.
It was good to get the invite, man. Anytime you need me, I'm here.
I got you, man. Appreciate it.